Produced by Podcast Architects.
Welcome back to another episode of the Path Forward special TASA Midwinter edition here in Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Dr. Rick Fernandez. I have a very special guest, an inspirational guest, Wade Stanford, the proud superintendent of Westwood ISD. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Man, Rick, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here and just share and talk, and love your podcast, so looking forward to it.
Well, you know, we met through, as always, right, mutual connections, and the backstory is that I got into your tweets because they were very positive and they were consistent, which sometimes is hard to find. Like myself, you know, I'm not as consistent as I need to be. So I was like, man, I really want to have him on the show and just pick his brain on a few things. But for our audience, tell us a little bit about Westwood ISD and why you love it.
Yeah, so Westwood ISD is a rural school district. We sit in Palestine, Texas. We have just a little over 1,400 students as of last Friday. I track that every Friday, so I know about where we're at every Friday. We were a little over 1,500 students pre-COVID. We're seeing some growth, different than what we've seen. Last October snapshot to this October snapshot, we gained about 100 kids.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a pretty big growth for us. But it's a great community made up of people that are just hard workers. So we have our clientele, we're about 74% low socioeconomic. Most of our families work in some type of oil field, service jobs, right, where they're hourly employees. And so they value hard work. And I think that's such a missing trait today in our
Absolutely.
World, you know, and so they really pass that on to their kiddos. We've had some great things occur here recently. So the last major build in our district was the year I graduated from high school, 1978. Our high school and our primary campus were built in 1978. And you just let that sink in.
Yeah,
for a minute.
it's marinating on me.
Yeah, and so you think about that, and so we went out for bond, and we failed the first time. It failed by 3 votes.
Oh.
3 votes.
Oh.
And you don't know how many people I talked to after that said, "Oh my gosh, I know 5 people that didn't vote."
Yeah.
And you know, and then we started talking to people outside the board.
Yes.
So board members were telling me that. And so we decided we were going to go right back. Went right back. We lost by, I think it was 111 or something like that. So the loss got a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so the signal was that some things weren't, we didn't have the right plan.
Okay.
Or we missed our mark somewhere. Board wanted to come right back, and they said, we've got to go right back. We got to come right back at them, and we can win this time.
Right.
And I said, guys, listen. I said, I'm going back to my coaching days because I coached for 21 years. And I said, when we coached and we lost a game, and then we said, we're going to play them again, and we didn't change our game plan, and we got beat worse.
Right.
We didn't come back and say, let's do that one more time.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so there was a piece there that we said, we need to step back, we need to reevaluate. We did that. And so then we took a year to plan. Maybe we can talk about what that looked like a little bit later, but
sure.
We went back out, and the last meeting of our planning committee, we had 2 absolute no's standing in the middle of the room arguing over how much the bond needed to be for. And we passed by a little over 60% approval rate.
Wow.
First bond to pass in 42 years, and we've now started turning dirt on the first major construction since 1978.
What did you do differently?
Okay, so here's what we did differently. We sat down, and number 1, I called 4 people.
Okay.
4 no's, the 4 loudest no's, and I said, I have to have you. I have to have you in the room.
Okay.
And we're getting ready to do a long-range strategic plan.
Right.
And I said, so I need you in the room. And I said, I've got to have you no matter what. And so those 4 came. Then what we did was we hired an outside consultant into learning.
Okay.
Roz Keck, Sherry Sides.
Yeah, I know Rob.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable. So they come in and they facilitate the meetings. And what we did, Rick, even I think that was probably a step above, was we sat and we said, okay, what do we want our learners to look like in Westwood ISD?
What's the graduate look like?
Yeah.
What's it all for?
Well, and so we actually, instead of saying the graduate, we said the learner, because we wanted it to immediately apply for a pre-K student.
Yes, that makes sense.
All the way through. And so we developed a profile of a learner. And that first meeting, it was like a gang war. And people were staring each other down. They were looking at each other like, let's throw down right now, you know. And we strategically placed people in the room,
right,
so that there wasn't a table full of yeses, a
right,
table full of no's.
You wanted some good discussion.
We wanted discussion.
Yes.
I wanted people to talk. And so that first night, somebody said, when are we going to talk about a bond?
Mm-hmm.
And Roz and them handled it well. They said, we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about the students of Westwood ISD. Right. So we made it about students. And so we developed that profile of a learner. Then they said, well, if that's our learner, what does our educator need to look like? And so we developed a profile of an educator. And then they said, well, if that's our educator, what does the leader need to look like that's going to lead that educator? And so then we developed a profile of a leader.
Okay.
And then they said, okay, so if we've got those three, we know what the learner looks like, we know what the educator looks like, we know what the learner looks like. What does that space look like, right, that they're going to operate in?
Yeah, how are they going to facilitate all of that?
Yeah, and so then we design the profile of the learning spaces. And so then they said, so once we did that, and there was we met more over that than I did any other single topic in my 40 years of education. We started in October, and the first semester we met every other week.
Wow.
And then second semester we met at least once a month. And then they brought the recommendation in June. Okay. So that gives you kind of a scope of the time frame. And so once we got that profile of the learning spaces developed, they said, so how would y'all feel if we audited our learning spaces now to see if we have what you desire?
Right.
And they said, absolutely. So we went and did it on the last night that we did that, and I missed one of the meetings because I had COVID, so I didn't get to tour two of the campuses. So we went lower grades for one night and then the upper grades another night. And then when I came back and we were at the upper grade, standing in the band hall of the high school, never forget it my entire life, an absolute no standing across the room, and he said, Wade, this district's in bad shape and it's not your fault. And he said, you've been handed a mess.
Right.
And he said, but we got to figure it out because we have to have a bond. And I looked at him, I said, well, maybe we could talk about that at the next meeting. And then we moved into the bond discussion.
Right. And
everybody was, even if they didn't totally agree with everything, they were on board.
Right.
And so we had 100% support on where we were going to start. So we gave them, because every building in our district needs to be touched. And so we asked them, where do we start?
Sure.
And so they made the decision to start at the junior high, turn it into a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade center, so it'll be a middle school. And then they even laid out what the second bond is going to be, and where that focus is going to be, and what the third bond is going to focus on. They didn't put timelines on it, but they said this is what we want. So that's part of our plan.
I love it. And that, I've had several discussions. So some of our colleagues have struggled with getting things passed, and it's taken a turn. I'm looking at, I love data. Texas used to be 75%, 80% clip that you could get a bond passed, and that has, I don't know if it's a political climate or whatever, but it's not that way. There's a lot of resistance to this point, and so I think the approach of keeping the kids at the center of the conversation, and if you want this for our kids, here's how we do that in terms of space, in terms of access to programming. All of that matters to the delivery of anything, whether it's a bond or program or whatever.
And those documents that we have, those documents are hiring guides for us.
Yeah.
So we use the profile of an educator. So when I interview, because I interview every teacher we hire, principals recommend their finalists to me, and I sit down with every one of them.
Yep.
So I have that profile, I have our core values, and they have to pass that test.
Sure.
So when we do leaders, they just hired an assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction, she has that. We find out, do they have those qualities, or do they have the capacity to grow in those areas?
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't just a task to get a bond passed, but they're actually guiding documents that we use every day. We're putting it in front of our teachers to say, this is the profile of the learner. Mm-hmm. So what opportunities are you giving them to accomplish these qualities?
Are we producing this? Are we providing these opportunities?
Yeah.
So I want your feedback on instructional philosophy, coaching. You're a parent. You've got a kid that plays sports. How often would you expect?
Yeah, and you know, I think everybody expects every day.
Exactly. Yeah. And the type of skill work, so whether it's baseball, whatever it is, in the band, the skill work is highly specialized. It has to be trained and coached and coached and coached and coached. So you take that to what we're doing in the classroom. Why would we not at least try to mimic what's going on when we're coaching everything else? I mean, personal trainers, same thing. At the very least, you're probably having that 3 days a week because you're getting feedback, you're getting results, you're getting data from it. How do we get to where there's a frequency where we're in there enough, we're giving feedback enough that we can see the skills being built?
Yeah, and I think that's a valuable question, and I think that we need to reflect over that because I was an athletic director and head football coach for 7 years, and what I told, and I'm going to get there to that, but what I told my group was, because they all had a passion to coach, and then they wanted to be good classroom teachers.
Sure.
But I told them there's a great coach can be a great teacher, okay? Can be, the choice. But I also told them all the things that we're doing in the classroom were invented in athletics.
Absolutely.
So, vertical alignment, we've always done that. Practice plan, that's the lesson plan.
Absolutely.
Game plan, that's the test. That's, it's all been there. So I think that if you say, how do we get that in the classroom, then we have to go and we have to say, how do we have that in athletics?
Okay.
We have that in athletics because people are very passionate. They really are driven by a scoreboard. They're driven by this intrinsic piece that I'm going to win and nobody's going to keep me from winning. And then there's this level of trust and relationship in that coach's office that you cannot duplicate anywhere else.
That's a great point.
You cannot do it. I have not been able, well, I'm close. Let me say that, I'm close. I have not been able to do it because I think there's something special about standing out in 105-degree weather or 100-degree weather and sweating together.
Oh, yeah.
And in practice.
Adversity.
Yeah, all that stuff, it does. And so I don't know that we can create that so much in the classroom and administrative teams, but I think we have to start working on creating that atmosphere of trust, of reflection, and of passion to win, regardless. And that it's, we used to say this, you're either coaching it to happen or you're allowing it to happen, one or the other.
Right.
You're either coaching it or happening, or you're allowing.
Right.
When you're watching film and they go, well, that kid's taking the wrong step. Well, you either coached him to take the wrong step or you allowed him to do it enough during practice that he won't do it. Well, you take that in the classroom.
Yep.
If that kiddo's not answering the questions, if that kiddo's not participating, you're either coaching it or allowing it, one or the other. So I think it's getting that passion to say I own it and it's mine and I'm going to fix it. And so I think that's a culture.
Okay.
I think it's a culture is what it is. And I'm bragging on our district a little bit right now. We use thought exchange a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard of thought exchange, but we use thought exchange a lot. And so during a thought exchange about a year ago, our teaching staff said, number one thought, we want feedback, we want it immediate, and we want it private.
Now, I love it.
And so we give feedback immediate and private. So when I go to a classroom, I walk by, I give them a high five, and I say, here's what I liked about your class. Mm-hmm. If there's something that needs to be fixed, then I do it privately.
Sure.
So we celebrate loudly, and refine privately.
I love that.
And so I think that's the piece. I think that's how you do it. Because here's the reality. If we could get to the level that we're taping lessons and then we have a reflection time, which is our Saturday mornings watching game film,
right,
or practice film in the afternoons. So if we could get to that level and a teacher could honestly watch themselves and refine that practice, imagine how that instruction would change.
Unbelievably so. And that's always been a little bit of my frustration is we can see it in other aspects of our life, but the fear of when it pertains to our jobs and our careers and our passion for teaching, it's more, and sometimes we're our own worst enemies because our new teachers coming in, that's not an expectation, right?
Yeah.
There's an expectation at Little League practice. I'm practicing 3, 4, 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. But as a new teacher coming in, we've not really changed that expectation. Like, hey, coaching is, part of our role is to help you to get better, to support you. And that comes with these processes.
So you're making me reflect right now because we need to refine some things in Westwood now. So in our process of interviewing our assistant suite of curriculum instruction, mm-hmm. candidates were talking about that, and we talked to this level about being proactive. Like, we know that new teachers are going to struggle with XYZ.
Right.
So why don't we do that training instead of waiting for them to struggle and then
know
do it? And so I think that we can take that even deeper and start getting this coaching model that would help us with that.
It's just like your kids, right? The first day you get them at practice, and whether it's going from 8th grade to freshman or all the way down to to Pop Warner, you got the system in place. They know what to expect because it's from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it's never an issue of fear. It just becomes the way. So we have a hashtag in our district, WW Way, Westwood Way. And I started it when I came in because it was like, this is the way we're going to do things. Right.
And so I think you're right. And so I think that needs to be a component of our hiring process. What's the coaching look like for you? How do you receive coaching? Are you willing to receive that coaching? And if you don't want to do it, then this may not be the district for you.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean you're bad.
Right. It just means that we're not aligned.
Just means there's another district out there that accepts that, and they need to go there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Last question, and I want to be respectful every time. Where do you get your positivity, and when did you start it, and how do you use that within your leadership style?
Yeah, so I think I started it the day that I started social media. Okay. That's when I started. Well, if you're saying putting it out.
Yes.
But I would say that I started it a long time ago.
Okay.
A lot of it's my faith.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way I start my day. Let's say every weekday I start my day like this. I try to sleep in a little bit on weekends, but I get up at 4:30. I have about an hour of quiet time where I read devotionals, I read different things. I post some things on my social media that align to what I got out of it.
Right.
And then, I think that reframes my thinking right there.
Okay.
And so I rely on that heavily. And then I try to find something that resonates with me. It's either something that I'm struggling with. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when you see it, it looks positive. It's because I was preaching to myself.
Yeah.
Or it's something that I just overcame, or it's something I know we're facing in the district. And so I made the choice that when I started social media, that there was enough negativity, there was enough things out there that weren't good, that were just people that were doing some things that I didn't feel like were in the right light and weren't accomplishing anything. And so I decided that there was a choice we had. We could be positive or we could just wallow in whatever we're in. And so felt like that was the direction I wanted to go, to try to uplift and those people, and that's where I live my life. Yeah. I think there's always an answer. There's always a way. I kid with people. I've never lost anything. I've just run out of time. But I think you speak things into existence, and if you walk it, you talk it, and you do it enough, then it happens. I'm reading Atomic Habits right now by James Clear.
I saw that. Yeah.
And so there's this habit piece that you just do it enough, it's who you become.
Yep.
And so that's where I think that's where it came from.
Well, I mean, I want to say, and I'm sure you've been told this before, but I think you would be shocked at the impact that has, because there has been a number of times where I've gotten up and it's been a tough day, a tough situation. I mean, my last superintendent job was a very difficult situation, and you look on there because it becomes habit, and you check, and there's something that hits you when it needs to hit you.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in coincidence. I believe good Lord puts things in your life because you need it. And I just want to say thank you, because there's been a number of times that I never have met you. I didn't know you other than, and it's like, man, that's something I need to hear that today.
Yeah.
I really did. And so I want to say thank you, and please continue to do that.
Yeah, and I will. When I get to a conference like this, it's hard. I get the spiritual piece. I get that every morning, but some of the other things, I get busy and I don't get it. But I can tell you that when you say I needed that, I needed it before you needed it.
Yeah.
And so God was speaking to me before he spoke to, and so what I really do is every day, right before I start, I say, God, show me what you want me to share, what's going to impact other people, what's going to make a difference in others' lives, not just mine, but others.
That's awesome.
And then that whatever comes to me, whatever's in that readings, that's what I post it.
Well, I sure appreciate it, man. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for your service to kids. I love that you've got a coaching mindset. I mean, obviously, I owe a lot to athletics and how it shaped me, and it's just been tremendous in my life.
Well, and I know we're short on time, but the athletic piece.
Yeah.
Like this morning, I didn't want to get out of bed, but I remember Coach Parker saying, "Get up off the ground, get up off the ground." He got off the ground.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Path Forward. Do you want to share out your Twitter handle? I would like if you share out your Twitter handle too.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is at Wade Stanford. It's WadeStanford. And so it's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's real simple. And for our audience, please, if you like what you heard, please go in and post a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please check out Wade's Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I promise you will find something that's very positive and uplifting, particularly when you need it the most. So, Wade, thank you for joining. I want to come see you in Westwood at some point. I love there's nothing better than school visits.
You bet. Awesome.
Thank you so much,
sir. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Produced by Podcast Architects.